Good morning. It's someday in April. What day is it? April the 6th? Yes, April the 6th. -2 degrees this morning. So definitely starting with coat and glove. I need to go to the grocery store, so my plan here is to walk a little roundabout way to get there, but we'll walk along the creek like I often do. Then when I come back, I'll go back by way of Safeway down on 13th Avenue and stop recording there, since taking the camera into the grocery store I think would be frowned upon. So my big news yesterday, dun, 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 the Kickstarter funded. Went over $15,000 yesterday. Currently at $15,572, I think. And they'll be coming up on 48 hours left at 11 o'clock my time. So it's in about less than 3 hours now. We'll be at the 48-hour mark. And at the 48-hour mark, anybody that's following and wants to get a note to remind them of it before it ends will get a note from Kickstarter. And that will... so I'm about to have company on the road here. That should pick up a few more people who want to be part of it, but sort of waiting to the end. Maybe they were waiting to see if it would fund, so they know for sure they're going to get whatever they put in as a backer's reward. I don't know. Don't know how many of those will come on board, but some certainly will. The Kickstarter, if you're new to these walks, and me, is to fund an anthology of science fiction and fantasy short stories by the authors whom I interview on my Aurora Award-winning podcast, The World Shapers. So last year I kickstarted one that was for the first year of guests. And so that was people like John Scalzi and Robert J. Sawyer, David Brin, Joe Haldeman, big names, as many of my guests are. And this time it's people who were second-year guests. And we got people like Kelly Armstrong and Marie Brennan, Barb Hambley, Garth Nix, another big, impressive lineup. And this year there's more of them. There's 24 stories. Will be in the anthology now that it's funded. I'm trying to get my camera where it should be. So it funded $15,000, and if it gets to $17,500, $2,500, I will raise the what I'm paying the authors by a cent a word. Currently 10 cents a word Canadian for original fiction and 5 cents a word for reprints. It'd be nice to raise that. I was able to do it last year. We're gonna have to put a cap on it. I'm looking for 5,000 word stories. Sorry, I'm still playing with the settings here. 5,000 word stories, and some of them are coming in longer. I'm gonna have to say 10 cents a word up to say 6,000 words or something like that, I think. That's the only way it's going to work. Because $15,000 barely covers what I need to do. In fact, it might not quite cover it. I didn't want to set too high a reward funding level, because with Kickstarter it's all or nothing. And so if I came close and I didn't get it, there wouldn't be the opportunity to say, well, we'll make do. So anyway, we'll see how high it goes. Last year it was 13,500 was my funding level, and it went to 15,700. Yeah, 15,700. So got 116% funded when it was all said and done. Don't know if I'll get there with this one, but we'll see. So here we are on the deck again. The deck, not the deck, the dike. There's the frozen creek, now mostly looking different. I think the ice is breaking, and in some places it's more like floating bits of ice instead of solid. Well, it's not solid. I certainly wouldn't walk on it. Beautiful morning, despite being a little cooler. Probably won't leave my hat on very long. I don't know why I can't seem to get the camera where it should be. As usual, we'll see lots of dogs and people walking dogs probably this morning. If you're watching this live on YouTube or on Facebook, if you leave a comment, I can see it, depending on where the sun is on the screen, and respond to it. Yesterday's walk, I had somebody from India with me most of the way, which was cool. And with the Kickstarter starting to slow down, maybe I can finally get in some decent chunks of writing on the new novel. I found it hard to concentrate. I mean, there's lots of that going around right now. I don't think it's because of the pandemic, but well, actually I do think it has something to do with that. I can't go out and do my usual writing, like in a coffee shop or pub somewhere. And I find that working at home with so many distractions with, the Kickstarter and everything else is a problem somewhat. Although really the internet is the distraction, I admit. And you have that with you pretty much everywhere. I don't like following somebody because they hear me talking to myself. I know I'm actually talking to you, but they don't know that. I'm already ready to take off my hat. Oh, guess they were meeting up. Beautiful blue sky again. Yesterday I said I thought I'd seen that we had a big snowstorm coming, but when I looked again it wasn't there, so I don't know if I hallucinated that or if there was some sort of problem with the weather app and it was giving me old data, or if I had, good grief, it's a regular dog convention up here. Anyway, no, there is no big snowstorm coming, like I said something about yesterday. So if you were with me yesterday, forget I said that. Here's our old friend, the footbridge. You can check on the status of the ice. Lots of liquid along the edges on both sides. Today we'll just follow the path until I'm headed back in the direction of the grocery store. Then I'll vary it. My first walk was along here. It's all covered with snow. Now it's not. I think my horizon is off again, but maybe it's just the way I hold it. I don't know. I tried to calibrate it. And it looks straight, but then sometimes out here it looks crooked. I mean, it does slope to the right, so I might be seeing that too. Obviously, it slopes down to the creek. There's that hockey goalie net still sitting down there in the ice. I guess it'll end up at the bottom. Surely in another week this will all be open water. It's good. There's a really warm day coming, like 19 or 20 Celsius. Although it was freezing last night, so I guess it rebuilds a little bit on a cold night before it starts to thaw again the next day. And it's probably still just below freezing right now, so melting won't kick in until later. Like if I point it that way, there's a definite slope to the horizon as it goes down from the Regina Avenue down toward the creek here. Oh, I know what we can do to make this different. I'll go down through Waterfall Park and walk on over to Elphinstone from there instead of following the path all the way around. We'll go down over the little footbridge there, maybe. So far nobody has said hi, so don't know if anybody's watching live or not. Yeah, I think I can go over the footbridge. No waterfall yet in Kiwanis Waterfall Park. I guess that's coming. But still frozen solid here. Hardly any sun gets to here. And a little bit of snow still left in the shade over there too. All right, I haven't walked over. Oof! Watch out for that step. Haven't walked over the little footbridge here. Not exactly a bubbling stream at the moment. That will come. So I could go back to the path, but instead we'll go this way. For a change. It's a playground, no children. Not the most direct, well, probably as direct as the path along the creek, which follows the creek. This will be straighter now once I'm up here on the sidewalk. There we go. There are some slight signs of greening, I think, in the grass here and there. Could just be wishful thinking, but I think that's what I'm seeing. And some sign on the trees that they're thinking about doing something. I mentioned this condo building yesterday. I walked by on that side. That's what it looks like from a little further away. Fairly new in that one. On this side, at least, you'd have a nice view out over the creek in the park, and you can see downtown from up there. I'm already starting to get warm from walking briskly. No sign of live viewers yet today. can cross anywhere here, so I think I'll do that since there's nobody coming. Just walk on this side to be different. I sort of came out along here yesterday because there's Sheldon Williams Collegiate down there at the end of the street. Local high school. Not the one my daughter went to. She went to Luther College High School, private school. Horizon's probably a little off. Probably if I didn't mention it, nobody would notice it except me. Good use of orange as an accent on the doors and on the porch furniture. It's also the Kiwanis Baseball Park over there, I guess is what they call those diamonds, and Kiwanis Waterfall Park. So Kiwanis is a social club. Captured a lot of that stuff around here, obviously. I don't know how those kinds of clubs are doing. I would imagine they're not getting a lot of younger people coming in. It's just not the current culture. I never belonged to Rotary or anything like that. I've spoken to them quite often, or sung down in Weyburn. When I was working for the Weyburn Review, they had a meeting of Rotary Club members from both Canada and the US. I remember singing both national anthems at their lunch one day. Star Spangled Banner, and I am American, I'm dual citizen. Although I haven't really lived down there since I was a kid. And well, when I was in university, I lived down there. But anyway, Star Spangled Banner is a harder song to sing than O Canada. The key with the Star Spangled Banner is to start it low enough. If you start it too high, you're doomed. And the rocket's red glare! That'll do you in if you start too high. But I knew that, so I started it somewhere like, oh, say, can you see? And then I was good to the end. The only problem with O Canada, they've changed the words a few times. So if you're old enough and you remember the original words that we sang when I was a kid, they're not the same words we sing now. But I always sing the football game. I sing out. Most people mumble, but I sing. 40 kilometers an hour. I think I can stay under that. Still no comments from anyone. If you're there, please leave me a comment. That woman with the dog we were behind on the dike is still over on the other side of the river. We'll probably encounter her again unless she stays ahead of us. Now I've got the Star Spangled Banner running through my head. When I'm not doing this and I'm just walking, usually some sort of song will take hold in my head, kind of earworm, and I will be singing it, or at least hearing it in my head, or under my breath I'll be singing it as I walk. And I think it's partly a way to keep a steady tempo. I mean, I don't do it deliberately, but it happens all the time. So some song that fits the tempo I'm walking will establish itself, and it's with me for the rest of the walk. And today it may be the Star Spangled Banner, if I ever am thinking about it now. Is she going to cross me on the bridge here? What's going to happen? We're going over the footbridge. No, I think she's sticking to the path. So here's the creek now again. More open water on the side there. Shortcut would be to go that way, but I'm not really looking for the shortest walk. It's also exercise, so longer is better. I don't know what they're doing over there. Emptying garbage, getting ready to paint. They're emptying garbage, it looks like. The city truck. Yeah, I actually think the horizon thing just has to do with the varying ways the angle of my wrist moves and how the gimbal interprets that. So it looks to me like there's a touch of green happening in the tips of that there tree. Not budding out, but fresh growth maybe. Always a pleasant walk through here. Even if I'm alone this morning, nobody's watching live. I usually find when I get back that there have been views on Facebook Live for at least a few minutes. At least people have noticed what I'm doing, whether they choose to walk with me or not. It's the curves that make it so exciting. Geese, lots of those around. It's not, of course, required that I speak while I walk, but it is part of what makes this interesting. To me, I can't speak for those who watch it. Maybe they'd rather I shut up once in a while. In case you need to know, we are apparently 2,012 kilometers from London. I have no idea why that's there. Can that even be right? That can't be right. Can't be London, England, 2,012 kilometers. London, Ontario, maybe. Can't be London, England. So I really don't know what that's in aid of. Have to be London, Ontario. We're well over 2,000 miles just to the east coast, I'm sure. Never mind the Atlantic Ocean. I have to unzip my coat here. I think I will, in fact. I think the last time I walked over here, there was still a big puddle. It wasn't that long ago anyway. There was a big puddle across the road up here, and I got my feet wet trying to go around it. I was going the other direction at the time. All dry now. Okay. Like I said, I have an interview today with, don't want to say his name because I might get it wrong. Fantasy author, well known. Lives out on the West Coast, so we're talking at 11 my time, 10 his time. And then I have another interview for the podcast later this week. Since I only do them every 2 weeks, that immediately pushes me well into the future. So I always have lots of time to get somebody if I don't have somebody lined up, but usually I've got a backlog. And since this Kickstarter funded yesterday, featuring authors from the second year of the podcast, I fully expect that a year from now, I will be doing Shapers of Worlds Volume 3, featuring third-year guests of the podcast. If all goes well still with this one, and I don't see why it wouldn't. Having done it once, I know what to expect from the point of view of editing and contracting and paying and publishing. I hope to have it out September, maybe, thereabouts. Last time, because of the way I did it, the ebook came out, and then it was 2 months before the print book came out. This time, I expect to go back to my usual print-on-demand model, which will mean the print book is available instantly alongside the ebook. And we'll see how that goes. Last year I got a grant and from Creative Saskatchewan and had it like 1,000 copies printed. And then a local publisher, Radiant Press, who had a distribution agreement with, here's the Elphinstone Bridge. You can go under there and keep going along the path, and I'll do that someday. I piggybacked on them with their distributor. But as a result, the print didn't come out for at least 2 months after the ebook was out. And so that initial surge of interest wasn't really there. And I don't like the lack of control. I would prefer to have more control. I haven't had any particular reports on how sales are going, except I got a royalty check, which was nice, and clearly quite a bit had sold. The advantage is, I assume that, again, I don't know because I haven't really had any kind of feedback, but I assume that bookstores are more likely to order a few copies because if they were through this distributor. Which, you get paid from bookstore orders in traditional publishing. That's where the money comes from. Not the individual orders like it does if you're doing print on demand. Although with print on demand through Ingram Spark, bookstores can order through it too and do. But perhaps not as readily as through a proper distributor who also would have some sort of sales force and marketing. So I don't know. Since I did it that way last year, I think I'll do it with my old model, my original model of print on demand this year. And we'll see. We can compare then. And then for the third year, I'll know how I want to do it. I'd need to print more books that aren't by me through Shadowpaw Press in order to I'm going to walk down the other side in order to get my own distribution agreement with one of these small press distributors, and maybe I'll get there. I will have had, I'm doing more and more not more and more, but I'm doing more that are not my own work. That is why I set it up primarily, was to get some of my stuff out there that had been orphaned by publishers going away or that I would like to get published but never found a home, that sort of thing. But I did publish my grandfather-in-law's First World War memoirs. One lucky devil. I had Shapers of Worlds last year. Now I have Shapers of Worlds Volume 2 this year. I have a couple other things I'm thinking of that would not be mine. So keep experimenting, growing. I'll probably do a hardcover edition, print-on-demand hardcover. Amazon is offering that, at least in a beta program, and they invited me to be part of that. So I did create a Shapers of World Volume 1 hardcover, which you can order on Amazon. It took more work than I expected because the cover demands are quite different. You have to take into account the I don't know what you call it, but it's like a gutter that runs along the spine. It's part of the binding process. And you have to make sure you have enough wraparound on the image for the image to, the paper that they print the cover on has to go around the boards 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or whatever it is, and be glued down on the inside of the covers, which means if you design just an ebook cover where you don't have to worry about the bleed, I had to lose a little of my image in order to make that happen. And nothing is ever precise enough. You can count on like putting a colored border around it and hope that's what will wrap around. Part of it might end up showing just with the vagaries of the mechanical process used to print. So I'm still learning that stuff. That's happened to me on my paperbacks too. I forget about that variance and I get the image too close to the edge. And sometimes I get a little black bar across the top of the cover, which is not ideal. So all those things that I've learned by being a publisher as opposed to just a writer. I do enjoy the design and layout. I have a minor in art and I've designed tons of posters and programs and things over the years. And I quite enjoy designing my own covers, but I'm not enough of an artist to create my own artwork. So if I can't find a good Shutterstock image, which is what I'm using on the Shapers of Worlds books, because there's an artist I found on there who does wonderful, evocative science fiction and fantasy images, and I've used, I don't even know if it's a he or a him, because the name is Thai or Malaysian or something. I've used that artist. I think we'll go over one. I used him or her for the cover of Paths to the Stars, the first Shadow Paw Press book, which is a collection of my short fiction. And I've used him or her for Shapers of Worlds, and using him or her for Shapers of Worlds Volume 2 as well. And probably for Volume 3, if and when it comes out, because that will keep a nice consistent look. Some I've just done with Shutterstock images that aren't that kind of artwork. I put out a science fiction novel. I always thought of it as YA, but when I read it again, it really wasn't. Called Assignment Avalon, which I wrote in the 80s, one of my very early efforts. Never found a home, but I always liked it. And so what I did was publish it through Shadowpaw just as an ebook. Called it by Eddie Willett, because when I was younger, I went by Eddie, not Edward or Ed. It's a good way to know where people who say hi to me know me from. They call me Eddie. That pins it down to teenage years or my 20s in Weyburn. And my story on it was that this was a novel by a younger time-traveling version of myself who stole a DeLorean time machine and came back to the future to 2021 to take advantage of the publishing opportunities that didn't exist when he was starting out. And it's actually sold a few copies on Amazon, had a good review, in fact, so I don't feel ashamed of it by any means. And I made sure that my name, Edward Willett, was also attached to it, so that if you're looking at my books, you will see Assignment Avalon. It's not off in limbo as by some other author. Anyway, for that one, I did a simple but I think effective Shutterstock image. The premise is that a young space pilot flies airspace fighters, is kind of sent off at the behest of her father, who never wanted her to join the force and has the clout to keep her out of combat. She's sent off on kind of a reconnaissance mission that's not supposed to amount to much, to a backward planet called Avalon, where their technology for flight is quite primitive, as primitive as basically World War I biplanes, even though they have remnants of the larger intergalactic culture like AIs in the cities and things like that. Well, first thing that happens when she gets to the system is she gets shot down, has to bail out, and an escape pod lands in the middle of a brewing revolution, and discovers that the bad guys, who are supposed to be in their final throes of defending Earth, it's kind of a Terran Empire kind of situation. I think they call it the Protectorate, if I remember right. They actually have been setting up to make this planet, Avalon, their new secret and secure base from which they can launch a counterattack. So she has to somehow get word of that back out to the greater universe, and along the way she has to fly these biplanes. The inspiration is funny. The story was inspired because I got a very early version flight simulator it was a Commodore 64 flight simulator, and I played that and enjoyed it a lot, even though I found images of it on YouTube, and it's, it was basically a flat green horizon and a blue sky, and the effort was all put into the instruments, right? So the instruments would tell you what was going on, and the actual images were quite crude. There were a few landmarks like the Sears Tower in Chicago, which I crashed into more than once just for fun. But anyway, that was kind of what sparked me doing this space opera, but with primitive flying. But going back to the Shutterstock image, I found an image of a model, but she was in sort of mid-20th flying gear. It's actually red Army flying gear, I think, or Soviet Army or Air Force. But it looked very retro. And she was looking kind of off into the distance. So I used her on the cover. And then in the background, there's the curve of Earth from space, which could be any planet with the clouds on it. You can't see the continents. And then used a kind of a military stencil font for Assignment: Avalon by Edward Willett. And then whatever the slug was, I put on there, the blurb. And it turned out well. I like it. It's striking, and it's reasonably representative. Oh, I walked by this before, like children's art on the multicolored fence here. Nice idea. I think it must be from a daycare. I'm going to keep zigzagging this way. I'm heading to Safeway, the grocery store, and I will stop this when I get there. It might be a little shorter than some days today, but nobody has said hi on YouTube or Facebook, so I don't know if anybody's watching live. Oh, there we go. We'll be cleaning the streets from all the dust and debris that has gathered there while they were covered in snow and ice. That's coming soon. They'll appear in front of our house, then we have to find a place for our cars. That's not on the street that's being swept. And we'll go this way again, which will take me where I want to be. So Assignment Avalon was actually kind of the latest Shadowpaw press release. I also released a few print things recently. I did a Blue Fire by E.C. Blake. It's quite a big, thick young adult fantasy. I used my E.C. Blake pseudonym on it because it's kind of similar to the Massive Agreement trilogy that I wrote under that pseudonym, which had a young protagonist. And it had been published before, so it was one of those that speaking of street sweeping, that's what's going on with all that noise. I want to go over to this path over here. It was published as Plains of Neviana by a publisher that went out of business, Rebelite, there goes the street sweeper, in Winnipeg. And that was a shame, so I decided to bring it out myself and also put it in a layout that I liked better. I can understand why, because it's quite a long book. They've made it in as thin as they could, but that meant very tightly packed text, and I didn't think it was very inviting to read. So there's the cathedral. So I did a redesign on it. For that one, I hired an artist, commissioned an artist to do the cover. Then the other new print books were Right to Know and Falcon's Egg, collectively known as the Peregrine Rising space opera duology. There's the spires through the trees up there. And they'd been published by Bundoran Press in Ottawa, and they closed down, so they came back to me, so I brought them out again in ebooks and print. There I was able to use the original cover art by a wonderful artist in Calgary, Dan O'Driscoll, who's also done a cover for me for another book of mine called Star Song, which has yet to be published. I was all set to do it through Shadowpaw, but then I found a publisher to send it to, so I'm waiting to see what they say. Here you go, look up the side of the cathedral, all the way up to the spires, with the sun shining on them. Very lovely. Almost now to Safeway. And what will be next from Shadowpaw other than Shapers of Worlds Volume 2? Well, it looks like I'll be publishing book 4 in my World Shapers series through Shadowpaw. I'm going to write it as soon as I get the Tangled Stars done for Daw, because Daw wants me to move on to something else, and I like to keep the World Shapers going, especially since there's somebody out in Hollywood that's actually trying to get someone interested in them. Not holding my breath on that, as I said, but it sure would be cool. And I still have books that were orphaned that I want to bring out. There's orphaned or previously self-published, but before I had Shadowpaw Press that I want to reissue. There's 4 of those I can think of off the top of my head. So, no shortage of projects. Then throw in the audiobooks, because I do have an audiobook version of Right to Know that I did, and I narrated my own version of Spirit Singer, which wasn't great because it's a young female protagonist, and mostly, and my voice is not really suited for young female protagonists. Some of my books have been done through other companies. The first 2 World Shapers books are out as audiobooks, and 2 of the Massive Agreement books are out as audiobooks, but not the 3rd one in either case. So you can see the Safeway sign up there. If you have backed, or if you do back the Kickstarter before it closes in about 48 hours, and I send you something that's not the book itself, like another book of mine, I'll be mailing it from Randy's Corner Store right there, which has a post office in it. I'm actually due to mail somebody who won a copy of Blue Fire on a I'm gonna walk down here a little bit before I cross over to Safeway and turn this off. I did an interview and there was a giveaway, and I have to send them a copy of Blue Fire. This one's also marked for street sweeping, I see, tomorrow. There's a little pub here, O'Hanlon's, hair studios, the gourmet, takeaway gourmet over there is gourmet foods, but especially cheese. Chocolate store next to it. Bakery. Butcher store down at the end. We patronize these places a lot. Okay, I'm taking off my gloves and then I will end this, so because I have to go in there. So thank you so much for following. I don't think anybody was here live today, but if you watch this on the replay later, thank you very much, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye for now.